Ms. Willingham is present in court to prove that Nathaniel Allen, who has tragically passed away, is the father of her son, Nicorian. However, Nathaniel's mother and aunt dispute this claim, stating that Nicorian is not his biological child, and they believe Ms. Willingham is attempting to collect Social Security death benefits by falsely pinning the child on Nathaniel. Ms. Willingham expresses her frustration and states that she does not depend on the system for support. Both parties present their arguments, with Ms. Griffin asserting that Ms. Willingham is only interested in the money. Ms. Willingham discusses her difficult experience since Nathaniel's family denied her son's paternity, and she emphasizes that Nathaniel acknowledged Nicorian as his child before his passing. Ms. Griffin admits to writing a letter expressing doubts about Nicorian's paternity and confirms that she did not bring the letter to court. Ms. Willingham explains that she asked Ms. Griffin to write the letter to present it to the Social Security office as proof of Nathaniel's paternity. Ms. Griffin believes that Ms. Willingham is using the child to collect benefits. The court intervenes to restore order and calls a witness, Ms. London, who confirms that Nathaniel initially expressed doubts about Nicorian's paternity but later became unsure. The judge contacts Ms. London and verifies her statements. Finally, a financial security advisor explains the process of obtaining death benefits and suggests various ways to establish paternity. Since Nathaniel's DNA cannot be tested, the court conducted a grandparentage test to determine if Ms. Griffin is related to Nicorian, which confirms their biological connection. The court rules in favor of Ms. Willingham, acknowledging Nicorian as Nathaniel's son. Ms. Griffin expresses her relief and asks for more involvement with her grandchild. The individual from Glen Burnie, who lives in Baltimore, talks about their life as a single parent. They mention that when they come home from work, they either play video games or take care of their son. They express frustration about the other person involved, Mr. Wilson, who they claim does the bare minimum for their son. The individual also mentions that Mr. Wilson has lied about being the father of their child to others. The court asks if the individual has informed people, including Mr. Wilson, that he is the father of their child. The individual explains that they have only discussed it with their ex-girlfriend, and Mr. Wilson is not the only person they have told about the situation. They express dissatisfaction with Mr. Wilson, stating that he already has multiple children from different mothers and is not involved in their child's life. They also mention that they are not interested in dating Mr. Wilson. The court questions the individual about why they are still best friends with Mr. Wilson. The individual responds by saying that they have done many things together and that if Mr. Wilson stopped lying about them, they would still love him. However, they emphasize that their main concern is their son, who deserves a father figure in his life. The court proceeds to conduct a DNA test to determine the paternity of the child. After receiving the results, it is revealed that Mr. Wilson is not the father, while Mr. Page is confirmed as the biological father. Mr. Page expresses his happiness and relief upon hearing the news. Ms. Brooks, the individual, feels vindicated as she had always believed that Mr. Page was the father. The court advises them to focus on their child and move forward. In the next case, Mr. Wilkes and Miss Eubanks are present to determine the paternity of their 3-month-old son, Muzzy. Mr. Wilkes expresses doubts about being the father and states that negative paternity results would mean the end of their relationship. Miss Eubanks, on the other hand, is confident that Mr. Wilkes is the father and wants to save their relationship. She becomes emotional, explaining how the doubts have affected her. Mr. Wilkes shares his perspective, mentioning the lack of connection he felt when their son was born. He expresses his desire for the truth and how the uncertainty has caused him stress and sleepless nights. Miss Eubanks explains that they met at a strip club during a family member's birthday party and fell in love. Their relationship experienced a difficult period after the birth of their first child, which led to a temporary breakup. Mr. Wilkes believes that Miss Eubanks was involved with other people during that time, while she denies having relationships and claims to have seen her ex at a family member's house innocently. The court acknowledges their conflicting accounts and decides to review a video that Mr. Wilkes mentions. The video reveals Miss Eubanks dancing, which Mr. Wilkes believes contradicts her claim of being faithful. This causes further distress in their relationship. The court emphasizes the importance of trust and healthy relationships, noting that constant doubt and the need for proof can be exhausting. The court urges them to focus on their connection rather than trying to prove things. Miss Eubanks becomes emotional, expressing her love for Mr. Wilkes and her efforts to show him that he is the only one for her. The episode concludes with the court awaiting the results of the paternity test to determine the biological father of Mazi.